In 1983, Gene Simmons met Shannon Tweed at the Playboy Mansion. It took 28 years before they finally married in 2011. Their marriage, however, was not only about love, also came at a time when Simmons was trying to protect his family from a growing scandal. Newly discovered footage from their reality show, Gene Simmons' Family Jewels, revealed private conversations that were never meant to be public. Around the same time, his son faced a plagiarism controversy, and later, legal documents from 2025 mentioned workplace incidents involving female employees. For the man who had once bragged about having relationships with thousands of women, the consequences of his past behavior were finally catching up to him. But Gene Simmons' story is far more complex than his wild rock star reputation. Before he became the famous frontman of Kiss, he was simply a boy named Chaim Witz. Born on August 25, 1949, in Haifa, Israel. His parents, both Hungarian immigrants, carried deep emotional scars from surviving the Holocaust. His mother, Flora Klein, born in 1925, had endured Nazi labor camps during World War II. His father, Yehiel Witz, also fled Hungary. And the couple married in 1946 before moving to Israel in 1947. The shadow of war and loss lingered over their family for years. By 1955, when Chaim was 6 years old, his parents' marriage had fallen apart, largely because of financial hardship. His father remained in Israel, while his mother raised him alone in the coastal town of Mount Carmel. Flora worked tirelessly in factories sewing buttons, often struggling to provide even simple meals. Many nights, dinner consisted of just bread and milk. Even as a child, Chaim tried to help. He and a friend would pick wild fruit and sell it by the roadside. When he needed a winter coat, he made one from an old army blanket. Life was difficult, but it built in him a fierce sense of independence. His mother often worked late into the night, leaving him alone at home. He cried himself to sleep many nights. But he also developed a determination that would define his future. At school, life was no easier. Other children teased him for being different, for his accent and background. Yet, he found comfort in comic books, especially American ones like Spider-Man and Superman. Even before he could read English, he studied the pictures and tried to understand the stories. By age 7, he already spoke Hebrew, Hungarian, and Turkish. And he began secretly learning English, so he could understand his heroes. His mother rarely spoke about her wartime experiences, but her silence, protectiveness, and sudden tears told him more than words ever could. She had been only 14 when the Nazis forced her into labor, moving her between camps while she watched her family and friends disappear. These memories left a permanent mark on both of them. For Flora, it meant a lifetime of cautiousness and fear. For Chaim, it created an unshakable drive to never appear weak or vulnerable. In 1957, Flora made a life-changing decision. She and her 8-year-old son left Israel for the United States, settling in Queens, New York, with no money and no English. Chaim's father stayed behind, remarried, and started a new life. Mother and son began again from nothing in New York. Chaim became Eugene Klein, adapting to American culture with fascination and effort. Flush toilets, TV dinners, and supermarkets amazed him. But adapting was not easy. His mother worked long shifts in factories, sometimes 15 hours a day, leaving Gene to learn self-reliance early. He first attended a Jewish school, but struggled to fit in, eventually transferring to a public school at first. Other students mocked his accent and foreign manners. But instead of breaking down, he used their rejection as motivation. He sold cacti door tweed and picked fruit again, just like he had in Israel. Watching television helped him learn English quickly, and his fascination with American pop culture grew stronger each year. By age 9, he had changed his name again, this time to Gene Klein, choosing Gene after his favorite cowboy actors, such as Gene Autry. He dreamed of being fully American. When the Beatles appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show in 1964, Gene was mesmerized. That night, he decided he wanted to be on stage too. Fame, music, and recognition became his goals through his teenage years. Gene worked a variety of small jobs to support himself and his mother at butcher shops, delis, and small stores earning just over $1 an hour. But he was careful with every cent, always saving rather than spending. While others drank or partied, Gene avoided alcohol completely. He observed how alcohol made people careless, and he promised himself he would always stay in control. Around this time, he began learning to play the guitar, inspired by the Beatles and other rock musicians. He formed small bands and practiced constantly. After finishing high school in 1967, he attended Sullivan County Community College, where he studied education. In 1970, he graduated with an associate degree and briefly worked as a sixth-grade teacher in Spanish Harlem for $75 a week. However, his passion for music outweighed his love for teaching. That same year, Gene met Paul Stanley, and together they formed a band called Rainbow, which soon evolved into Wicked Lester. The group mixed folk and rock influences and recorded an album in 1972 at Electric Lady Studios, the studio built by Jimi Hendrix. Unfortunately, Epic Records rejected the album, calling it too experimental. The disappointment hit Gene hard, determined to move forward. He and Paul disbanded Wicked Lester and began creating something entirely new. In early 1973, they met drummer Peter Criss and guitarist Ace Frehley through classified ads in Rolling Stone and The Village Voice. Together, they formed Kiss, a band that would change rock music forever. They designed their makeup and stage personas to stand out. Gene became the Demon, inspired by horror movies and comic books. Paul became the Star Child. Ace became the Spaceman. And Peter became the Catman. Their first show, held on January 30th, 1973, at a small club in Queens called the Coventry, drew only a few people. But those few never forgot what they saw: fire, blood, and theatrical energy unlike anything else at the time. Though they lacked radio play, Kiss built their following through relentless touring and unforgettable performances. Fans spread the word, and within just over a year, they were performing in large venues. In 1973, television director Bill O'Coin saw one of their shows and believed they had enormous potential. He helped them sign a record deal with Casablanca Records, a new label founded by Neil Bogart. Their self-titled debut album, Kiss, was released in February 1974. Though sales were modest at first, their live shows drew attention. They performed over 300 concerts that year, keeping both the band and the struggling record label alive. In September 1975, Kiss released Alive, a live album that captured the intensity of their concerts. It became their breakthrough success, going quadruple platinum and staying on the charts for over 100 weeks. Songs like Rock and Roll All Night became anthems, and the band's dramatic image became their greatest asset. With their next album, Destroyer 1976, produced by Bob Ezrin, Kiss introduced a more polished sound. The album included hits like Detroit Rock City, God of Thunder, and Shout It Out Loud. The addition of orchestral and choir elements gave their music a cinematic quality that expanded their audience. By the late 1970s, Kiss had become one of the biggest bands in the world, with sold-out stadium tours, merchandise, comic books, and even a television movie. However, fame also brought internal conflict and personal challenges. Gene developed a reputation for his numerous romantic relationships, something he would later describe as an unhealthy addiction to attention and validation. Although he avoided drugs and alcohol, he often spoke openly about his personal life in interviews, which became both part of his image and a source of criticism. In the decades that followed, Gene Simmons became more than just a musician. He built a business empire, managing brand deals, television shows, and merchandising ventures. His face-painted demon character became one of the most recognizable symbols in rock history. Behind the fame, though, his early life continued to shape him. The poverty of his childhood, the trauma his mother endured, and the loss of his homeland left deep marks. They drove his ambition, but also created emotional distance in his relationships. When he finally married Shannon Tweed in 2011, it marked a new chapter in his personal life. After decades together and 2 children, they chose to formalize their partnership publicly. However, their marriage coincided with growing scrutiny of Gene's past behavior, both in the media and in private legal disputes. Despite the controversies, Tweed has remained a significant influence in his later years, helping him confront parts of his past he had long ignored in many ways. Gene Simmons represents both the dream and the cost of fame. From a poor immigrant child in Israel to a global rock icon, his life reflects ambition, survival, and reinvention. Beneath the makeup and the fire-breathing theatrics lies a man shaped by history, loss, and a relentless desire to prove himself to the world. By the late 1970s, Gene Simmons' confidence had grown along with KIS's fame. Producer Bob Ezrin had helped refine their sound, but Gene made sure his own demon persona always remained the center of attention. Their concerts were no longer just rock shows, they were theatrical explosions of fire, lights, and stunts. During the Dynasty Tour in 1979, Gene soared across the stage on wires, while guitarist Ace Frehley's instrument fired rockets into the air. Their special effects, designed by technician John Elder Robeson, made every show a spectacle. The band played 92 concerts across North America. But behind the smoke and fireworks, problems were beginning to show. Attendance started dropping. Some large venues, like the Pontiac Silverdome, had to cancel shows, while others downsized due to low ticket sales. Peter Criss, the drummer, was battling addiction and often sabotaged performances by stopping mid-song or refusing to play properly. Gene later described it as self-destruction in real time. The final concert of the tour, in Toledo on December 16, 1979, made it clear that the original lineup was falling apart. The band's audience was also changing. Families and children began attending instead of hardcore rock fans. Disco influences had crept into their music, and longtime followers felt alienated. In 1978, things took an even stranger turn when NBC aired Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park on October 28, produced by Hanna-Barbera, the same company behind Scooby-Doo. The TV movie featured Kiss as superhero versions of themselves fighting an evil inventor in an amusement park. Gene improvised over-the-top lines about world domination, mirroring his real-life ambition to make KISS a global brand. The movie was widely mocked for its bad acting and silly plot. But Gene didn't mind the attention. He loved the publicity, even if the rest of the band tried to forget it ever happened. Despite its poor reception, the movie became a cult favorite overseas, especially in Europe, where it was retitled Attack of the Phantoms. That same year, each member of Kiss released a solo album. Gene's record, simply titled Gene Simmons, outsold some of the band's actual group albums. It featured odd song choices, including a cover of When You Wish Upon a Star, and guest appearances from artists like Cher and Bob Seger. His music focused on fame, fantasy, and the darker sides of desire. In May 1979, Kiss released Dynasty, featuring the hit single I Was Made for Lovin' You. The song climbed to number 11 on the Billboard charts and went platinum in several countries. However, its disco-inspired rhythm upset many loyal fans who accused the band of selling out. Ticket sales fell sharply, and the band's image began to suffer. Peter Criss played on only one song before officially leaving the band by 1983. Kiss made a shocking decision. They removed their iconic makeup live on MTV, After 10 years of mystery, they revealed their real faces to the world and released Lick It Up, a harder, heavier record that went platinum. The gamble worked. Old fans returned, and the band gained a new generation of followers. Though the masks were gone, the Kiss brand was stronger than ever. With over 100 officially licensed products ranging from lunchboxes to action figures, in 1984, Gene took a break from music to try acting. He appeared as the villain Luther in the sci-fi thriller Runaway, directed by Michael Crichton. Playing a deranged scientist who used killer robots, Gene leaned into his dark stage persona. His performance surprised critics. He wasn't just pretending to be evil anymore. He was convincing. Meanwhile, Peter Criss's exit left a hole in the band. But Gene and Paul Stanley filled it with drummer Eric Carr, who became known as the Fox. Carr's talent helped stabilize the group during the difficult 1980s. In 1989, Kiss released Hot in the Shade, featuring the power ballad Forever, which reached number 8 on the Billboard charts. The song's softer tone confused fans but brought commercial success, selling over 500,000 copies. Behind the scenes, however, Gene was distracted by Hollywood and his personal life. He often skipped recording sessions, chasing acting roles and new relationships. Eric Carr sang his first lead vocal on Little Caesar, but tragically, it would be his last performance before his death in 1991. In his 2001 Teen Night's autobiography, KISS and Makeup, Gene openly admitted to having relationships with over 4,800 women during his career. One of his most talked about stories involved dating Cher in 1979 only to fall for her close friend, Diana Ross. What began as a Christmas shopping trip turned into a full affair that ended his relationship with Cher and caused a media storm, although he later stayed on friendly terms with both women. The betrayal became one of rock's most famous scandals. In 1996, the original Kiss lineup reunited, makeup and all. The reunion tour was a massive success, with 92 sold-out shows in 75 cities and $143 million in ticket sales. Fans were thrilled, but backstage tensions flared again. Ace Frehley and Peter Criss were paid flat rates of $80,000 per show, while Gene and Paul earned $110,000 plus profits. Lawsuits and disputes followed, reminding everyone that even success couldn't heal old wounds. From 2006 to 2012, Gene let cameras into his personal life through his reality show, Gene Simmons' Family Jewels. The show offered a glimpse into his relationship with longtime partner Shannon Tweed and their 2 children, Nick and Sophie. It became one of A&E's biggest hits, showing a softer, family-oriented side of the man once known for excess. But reality sometimes hit too close to home. In 2008, a private tape of Gene with another woman surfaced, leading to legal action and public embarrassment. Then, in 2011, after nearly 30 years together, he finally married Shannon. The wedding, broadcast on TV, was lavish and emotional. The reality show wasn't always flattering. In one episode, Shannon burned Gene's collection of old Polaroids featuring his past conquests. The act symbolized the end of his Playboy image. Later episodes showed the couple in therapy as Shannon confronted Gene's fears of commitment. Viewers saw him, for once, drop his stage mask and admit that his childhood insecurities made him afraid of emotional vulnerability. Despite his personal struggles, Gene's business empire thrived. By the 2000s, the Kiss logo appeared on more than 5,000 products, from pinball machines and credit cards to coffins. The brand earned over $1 billion in total sales. However, controversy was never far away. In 2017, Gene tried to trademark the devil horns hand gesture, claiming he invented it in 1974. The gesture, with the index and pinky fingers raised, was already widely used by rock fans. After intense backlash from the metal community, who pointed out that artists like Teese, Lonnie James Dio, and John Lennon used it long before KISS. Gene dropped the claim just days later. His legal troubles didn't stop there. In 2010, ESPN makeup artist Victoria Jackson accused him of inappropriate behavior during a SportsCenter appearance. Gene denied it and filed a countersuit. The case was later settled. Similar accusations surfaced in 2016 and 2017 from employees at his Rock and Brews restaurant chain. But both cases were quietly resolved by 2015. Gene Simmons' net worth was estimated at over $400 million, fueled by decades of touring, merchandising, and new ventures. He and Paul Stanley expanded their Rock and Brews restaurant franchise across the U.S. And Gene released The Vault in 2017, a limited edition box set of rare recordings priced at $2,000 each. He also joined the cannabis company Invictus, MD in 2018 as a public ambassador. Gene and Shannon's relationship began in 1983 at the Playboy Mansion, where she was living after being named Playmate of the Year in 1982. Despite knowing his reputation, she stayed with him through the chaos. They had 2 children, Nick, born in 1989, and Sophie, born in 1992. Their marriage faced many public ups and downs. But Shannon's influence eventually grounded Gene. In 2018, tragedy struck when Gene's mother, Flora Klein, passed away at age 93, a Holocaust survivor who had endured unimaginable loss. She had been his moral compass throughout his life. Gene shared a heartfelt tribute on social media, calling her the reason I am who I am. Even his children were not free from controversy. In 2010, his son Nick was accused of plagiarizing artwork from the Japanese manga Bleach for his comic book Incarnate. After fans pointed out identical panels, the publisher pulled the comic and Nick apologized publicly. Gene defended him, but the criticism lingered. In 2024, Gene found himself in hot water again after appearing on Dancing with the Stars. Viewers criticized his comments about female dancers as inappropriate, and social media erupted with backlash. Instead of apologizing, Gene defended his words in a later interview, insisting he meant no harm. In April 2025, he launched the Gene Simmons Experience, offering fans the chance to act as his roadie for a day for $12,495, not including tickets. The package included backstage access, a signed bass guitar, and even a moment on stage. Critics called it greedy and tone-deaf, but it sold out quickly. Later that year, controversy struck again when President Donald Trump announced that Kiss would receive the Kennedy Center honors. The internet erupted in confusion just years earlier. Gene had criticized Trump publicly. The band's acceptance of the award sparked debates about hypocrisy and celebrity politics. Despite all this, Gene continued performing. His solo shows in 2025 featured storytelling, humor, and nostalgia instead of pyrotechnics. While some fans complained about high ticket prices, others praised the more intimate performances. When Ozzy Osbourne passed away in July 2025, Gene broke down in tears during a live interview. He spoke warmly about touring with Black Sabbath in the 1970s and how Ozzy's authenticity had always inspired him. For a moment, fans saw not the demon, but the man behind the makeup: a survivor, a son, a husband, and a legend.